Here's one quote. All right, from Matt Rhule when he talked about the defensive line the other day. I quote, "I think we're going to have one of the best D lines around." End quote. Did he? I don't think he ever said the word elite. I think I know they said it with regards to the wide receiver room, but one of the best defensive lines around. Were you surprised when Rhule said he expects us to have one of the best defensive lines around? Because I can honestly say, like when you pay, I just like to do simple things like connect dots. I try to, the conversations that I'm privy to have with certain people who know things on the inside, I try to, obviously, they're nice to have and you can use those when you're doing a show like this. But I try to also just step back and act like I don't have those and just connect dots from a distance. They brought in a couple of guys, Jalen George, Gabe from the portal for the D line, but they were young guys. There wasn't a whole lot of experienced guys. I mean, Jalen's a little bit older. He's going to be out this spring. He'll be back this fall. But it wasn't a whole lot of proven guys. And then the running back room, they brought in nobody. They offered one guy early in December. That was it. Just because he was such an insane talent. But nothing since. Haven't brought in anybody. And so you just connect dots. You're like, they must feel good about those rooms. And then you hear Rhule say, don't think we need to address the running back room. Feel good about it. Going to have one of the best defensive lines around. The running back room I wasn't as surprised about because he kind of was a little less definitive. He was just, I don't think we need to address it. And then he went on to talk about Quentin Ives and a couple other guys. We're actually going to talk about running backs tomorrow in depth and Emmett Johnson being a weapon. I love that word. A weapon. Dude, a weapon of mass destruction. Like, if I'm Emmett Johnson, that's my goal. That's what's written on my goal board, to be a weapon of mass destruction. That is all encompassing right there. That encompasses everything you need to know. But we'll talk more running backs tomorrow. I was surprised about the defensive line because we don't have anybody who's consistently proven. You at least have Emmett. You don't just have to fill one position like you do at running back. You got to fill three. And he didn't just say, hey, we've got guys ready to go. We've got guys ready to step up. I don't think there's going to be a drop-off. I don't think we're going to be pretty good. We're going to have one of the best defensive lines around is a very definitive statement. And if it turns out to be true, people are going to remember that. If it turns out not to be true, people are going to remember that too. What are your thoughts on all this, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was good to hear, and it makes some more sense, right, from what we're kind of tracking in the off season is trying to find a running back at that position. The defensive line, it's more depth to me than some of the guys up front. Might not have that many starts, but we've seen Elijah Judy and Cam Linhart and Riley Van Poppel in action. And they did go out to get depth this offseason and getting Jalen George and Gabe Moore. Those are two of the transfer portal additions that I think we talk about flying under the radar. They just don't, it's a guy that redshirted and a guy from the FCS. So it is where it is. But obviously the big addition of Williams Waneri is the biggest one. But I think at defensive line, a place where you really could need depth, right? And then you rotate quite a bit. That's more of my concern than the front line guys. Because I can pencil in a good front rotation. It's kind of those names behind that we hope. We talk about the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line and how at some point Raiola is going to have to develop some of those younger guys so they can get into the rotation and start playing. Same can be said on the defensive line.
So I don't know if we were just to project starters on the D line, who would you project? They're not even in pad. They practiced today, first day in pads. Probably would have been half pads. That's how it typically goes. 2 days non-padded, half pads, full pads. And then usually the last day before a spring game is your last day in without pads because you want to be fresh for the spring game the next day. So we'll see how that plays out because there is no spring game. But Husker games is going to take place. But who would be your projected defensive line starters right now at this very, very early moment in time, Jake?
I think I'd probably go Riley Van Poppel, Cam Linhart, and Keona Davis with Elijah Judy also. I mean, it's a three-man front, but those four basically be your starters.
Who's your nose?
I think Elijah Judy, that's why I mentioned him there at the end, but Van Poppel's got the size as well.
Then you got Jalen George again. He'll be back in the fall. Gabe Moore. You see him more as a nose or an end, Jake?
Moore's listed at 250, so I would say Moore, unless he gains.
Oh, I thought he was like, why did I think he was 300? Am I just way off on that?
I'm not sure.
Hold on, let me. No, you're right. 250. Wow, I was way off on that. I was thinking he was 300 when he came. I haven't looked at him since he committed in the transfer portal. When was that? December, January? So,
Yeah.
all right. What I see when I look at the D line, and when you think about why Matt Rhule would say what he said, I see talented guys with ability, guys that can excite you. You think back to the bowl game, we were in the backfield a lot against Boston College, a lot. What really hurt us was the blocked kicks and a couple of big plays. Outside of that, the defense, they were getting downhill, they were attacking, they were blitzing, they were in the backfield a lot. Our linebackers and our D line were penetrating. It's exciting. Keona, athletic. Elijah Judy, the only senior we have up front. Cam Leonard, a guy who started 6 games 2 years ago, is a true freshman. Van Poppel, a 4-star guy out of high school. Williams and Warrior. I'm curious to see if he's more with his hand in the dirt or standing up, coming off the edge type guy. We'll see what happens. Again, this is a multiple type defense. So maybe we go more 4 down and he's standing up, coming off the edge as that 4th guy. I don't know. Gabe Moore is a guy that you didn't hear a ton about, but again, go back to high school. You saw good things. That's what sticks out to me when I watched his film when he first committed out of the transfer portal here from Mississippi State. I saw good things. Redshirted last year. For Matt Rhule to say that, he's not basing anything off anything he has seen this year. Again, they haven't even been in pads yet, unless they were probably half pads this morning. That's it. They haven't even been full pads yet this year. Now, he can project a little bit off winter conditioning and guys getting bigger, faster, stronger. This is based off things he saw last year in practice. There is a valid concern that Husker fans are going to be hit hard without Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker, and people are going to be like, oh, man, I don't think we realize just how good they were for us. Well, if that's the case, then the guys that are stepping up playing next year must be struggling a little bit. Otherwise, I don't know what that would mean. Matt Rhule comes out and he has said it was undervalued what Ty Robinson did for us last year. But then he's come out and said he expects us to have one of the best defensive lines around next year. I think what that means is he saw things in practice last year. Maybe those guys weren't quite ready, but he believes sometimes that little time, that little extra time can be a huge difference maker. I was not the same football player December of my true freshman year that I was when we started spring practice in March. Still my true freshman year, just about 3 months later. I was not the same football player. I got to go home. I got to get over the homesickness. I got to come back. I was much more acclimated to what college life was like, living here full time. College football was like, college classes were like. If I'm being fully honest, I had a new roommate. Thank God for that. That was a huge difference maker. And I didn't expect what happened my true freshman year in the spring. I felt like that was me coming into my own, and I had ups and downs, as a true freshman would, even in the spring. But I started doing some really good things. And so sometimes that little time frame can make a big difference. So I'm willing to bet Matt Rhule saw things last fall. Obviously, there's been some improvements over winter conditioning, bigger, faster, stronger, all that good stuff. And he feels very confident about our defensive line. I don't question the talent or ability. Just got to go see it. Kind of like with a lot of things. I think our wide receiver room is very talented. A lot of ability. Just got to see it. I got to see it. I got to see it, man. It's fun to throw around the E word, but I want to see the P word, which is production. Saying we're elite is great. Let's get some production. That excites me more. Anything else real quick, Jake?
No, I and sometimes you think about Matt Rhule and the different buttons he wants to push too. I kind of thought maybe you could say this is a group that has a lot of upside, but we need to get there. But I think part of that is just kind of saying, like you were kind of saying there too, is I think that the talent is there, the upside is there. We just got to kind of see it play out. And I still kind of go back to just the first year he's on campus and the defensive line was a major question mark, and watch that spring game and go, this defensive line's flashing quite a bit. Unfortunately, we won't get the spring game this year to really make that sort of assessment. But like you were saying, if they were showing off in practice enough to that they didn't feel like they needed to go in and add top flight guys out of the portal. Like I said, yes, it appears they got some depth. Yes, they got a pass rusher in Waneri, but they didn't like go out and get a major piece that you see right away as definitely being a starter. Then you feel comfortable about the guys they had on campus in that they were looking for depth, not necessarily a starter.
He makes some great points. And buttons he wants to push. He definitely uses that microphone to communicate messages. Sometimes it's to his own players. I don't think he does that a ton. I think he's aware of how that affects players sometimes. But he definitely does it for the media, and he definitely wants to send a message to fans sometimes. The buttons he wants to push. Now, I'm just going to stand on this hill. Maybe I'll die on it. I still think him talking about the jump and this, and I don't think it's necessary. I think it's unnecessary added pressure. Just say, we're going to get better. We are getting better. Nobody's going to work harder. Nobody's going to practice harder. Nobody's going to work longer than us. Nobody's going to put more hours in. He's not said that. I mean, we know he works his butt off. I don't question that, but like, I think he's put a lot of pressure on himself. I think he even mentioned it in the Pat McAfee show. He's like, oh, a lot of pressure, huh? Because he talked about that year 3 jump, and that's what happens, and that's what he's been talking about. I think it's unnecessary. I hope he didn't do something similar here with the D line and unnecessary pressure, so to speak. But I know he's got a reason. There's a reason that he said it and he did it and he wants to do it and speak that way and push those buttons, so to speak, like Jake said.